The Auroras of Autumn by Wallace. This is where the serpent lives, the bodiless. His head is air beneath his tip. At night eyes open and fix on us in every sky. Or is this another wriggling out of the egg? Another image at the end of the cave? Another bodiless for the body's slough? This is where the serpent lives. This is his nest. These fields, these hills, these tinted distances, and the pines above and along, and beside the sea. This is form gulping after formlessness, skin flashing to wished for disappearances, and the serpent body flashing without the skin. This is the height emerging at its base. These lights may finally attain a pole in the midmost midnight and find the serpent there, in another nest, the master of the maze, the body and air and forms and images, relentlessly in possession of happiness. This is his poison, that we should disbelieve even that. His meditations in the ferns, when he moved so slightly to make sure of the sun, made us no less as sure. We saw in his head, black beaded on the rock, the flecked animal, the moving grass, the Indian in his glade. Farewell to an idea. The cabin stands deserted on a beach, is white as by custom, or according to an ancestral theme, or as a consequence of an infinite course. The flowers against the wall are white, little dried, kind of mark, trying to remind a white that was different. Something else last year, before, not the white of an aging afternoon. Weather fresher or duller, weather of winter cloud or of winter sky. From horizon to horizon, the wind is blowing the sand across the floor. Here, being white is being visible, is being of the solid of white, the accomplishment of an extremist in an exercise. The season changes. A cold wind chills the beach. The long lines of it grow longer, emptier. The darkness gathers, though it does not fall, and the whiteness grows less vivid on the wall. The man who is walking turns blankly on the sand. He observes how the north is always enlarging the change with its frigid brilliances, its blue-red sweeps, and gusts of great enkindlings, its polar green, color of ice and fire and solitude. Farewell to an idea. The mother's face, the purpose of the poem fills the room. They are together here, and it is warm with none. The presence of oncoming dreams. It is evening, the house is evening, half dissolved. Only the half they can never possess remains. Still starred, is the mother they possess, who gives transparence to their present peace. She makes that gentler, that can gentle be, and she, yet too, is dissolved, she is destroyed. She gives transparence, but she has grown old. The necklace is a carving, not a kiss. The soft hands are a motion, not a touch. The house will crumble, and the books will burn. They are at ease in a shelter of the mind, and the house is of the mind, and they and time, together, all together, boreal night will look like frost that approaches them, and to the mother as she falls asleep. And as they say good night upstairs, The windows will be lighted, not the rooms. The wind will spread its windy grandeurs round, and knock like a rifle butt against the door. The wind will command them with invincible sound. Farewell to an idea, the cancellings. The negotiations are never final. The Father sits in space, wherever he sits, oblique regard, at one that is strong. In the bushes of his eyes he says no to no, and yes to yes. He says yes to no, and in saying yes he says farewell. He measures the velocities of change. He leaps from heaven to heaven more rapidly than bad angels leap from heaven to hell in flames. But now he sits in quiet and green a day. He assumes the great speeds of space, flutters them from cloud to cloudless, cloudless to keen clear, flights of eye and ear, the highest eye and the lowest ear, the deep ear that discerns at evening things, that attend it until it hears the supernatural preludes of its own, the moment when the angelic eye defines its actors, approaching in company in their masks. Master, O Master, seated by the fire, and yet in space and motionless, and yet of motion the ever-brightening origin, profound, and yet the king, and yet the crown. Look at this present throne. What company in masks can quiet the naked wind? The mother invites humanity to her house, and table the father fetches tellers of tales, and musicians who muse much on the tales. The father fetches negresses to dance among the children like curious ripenesses of pattern in the dances ripening. For these, the musicians make us insidious tones, clawing the sing-song of their instruments. The children laugh and jangle at tinny time. The father fetches pageants out of air, scenes of the theatre, vista and blocks of woods, and curtains like a naive pretense of sleep. Among these, the musicians strike the instinctive poem. The father fetches his unherded herds, barbarous tongue, slavered and panting, half a breath, obedient to his trumpet's touch. This then is Chatillon, where she please, stand the tumult of a festival. What festival, this loud, disordered meech, these hospitaliers, these brute-like guests, these musicians, dubbing at a tragedy. A dub, just made up of this. There are no lines to speak, there's no play, or the persons act one merely by being here. It's a theater floating through the clouds, itself a cloud, though of misted rock, and mountains running like water, wave on wave, through waves of light. It's of a cloud transformed, to cloud transformed again, idly the way a season changes color to no end, except the lavishing of itself in change, as light changes yellow to gold, and gold to its opal elements, and fires to life, splashed widewise, because like's magnificence splashed widewise because it likes magnificence, and the solemn pleasures of magnificent space. The cloud drifts idly through half-thought forms, theaters filled with flying birds, wild wedges, of a volcano's smoke, palm-eyed and vanishing, a web in a corridor, or massive portico, capital, maybe, submerging, or has just collapsed. The denouement has been postponed. This is nothing until a single man contained. Nothing until his named thing as nameless is destroyed. He opens the door to of his house, one flames, scholar, one candle sees, an arctic effulgence flaring on the frame, everything he is, and he feels afraid. Is there an imagination that sits enthroned, as grim as it is benevolent, the just and the unjust, which in the mist of summer stops to imagine winter? When the leaves are dead, does it take its place in the north, and fold itself, good leaper, crystalled and luminous, sitting the highest night, and do these heavens adorn and proclaim it the wide crater of black, jetted by extinguishings, even of planets, maybe, even of earth, even of sight and snow, except as needed by way of majesty, hidden the sky, as crowned in diamond Kabbalah. It leaps through us, through all our heaven, it sleeps, extinguishing our planets one by one, leaving of where we were, and look at, or where we knew each other thought, shivering residue, chilled and forgone, except for that crown and mystical Kabbalah, but it dare not leap by chance in its own dark, and must change from destiny to slight caprice, and thus it is jetted tragedy, its steely in shape, mournful making move to find what must unmake it, and at last, what can say of flippant communication under the moon? There may always be a time of innocence. There is never a place. If there is no time, if it is not a thing of time, nor of place, existing in the idea of it, alone, the sense of calamity is not less real. For the oldest and coldest philosopher, there is or may be a time of innocence, as pure principle, its nature is its end, that it should be, and not yet be, a thing that pinches the pitiful man, like a book at evening, beautiful but untrue, like a book on rising, beautiful and true. It is like a thing of ether that exists, almost as predicate, but it exists, it's visible, it is. So then, these lights are not a spell of light, a saying out of a cloud, but innocence, an innocence of the earth, and no false sign of symbol or malice, that we partake thereof, lie down like children in this holiness, as if awake we lay in the quiet of sleep, as if the innocent mother sang in the dark of the room, and on an accordion have heard, created the time and place in which we breathed, and of each other's thought, in the idiom of the work, in the idiom of an innocent earth, not of the enigma of the guilty dream. We were, as Danes in Denmark all day long, knew each other well, hale-hearted landsmen, for whom the outlandish was another day, the week queerer than Sunday. We thought alike, and that made brothers of us in a home, in which we fed on being brothers, fed and fattened, sonotechris, honeycomb, this drama that we live, we lay sticky with sleep, the sense of the activity of fate, the rendezvous, when she came alone, by her coming, became a freedom of the two, an isolation which only the two could share. Shall we be found hanging in the trees next spring? Of what disaster is this? The imminence, bare limbs, bare trees, and wind as sharp as salt. The stars are putting the glittering belts. They throw around their shoulders cloaks that flash, like a great shadow's last embellishment. May come tomorrow in the simplest word, almost as part of innocence, almost as the tenderest and the truest part. An unhappy people in a happy world, read, Rabbi, the phrases of this difference. An unhappy people in an unhappy world. Here are too many mirrors for misery. A happy people in an unhappy world, it cannot be. There's nothing there to roll on the expressive tongue. The finding fang, a happy people in a happy world. Buffo, a ball, an opera, a bar. Turn back to where we were when we began, an unhappy people in a happy world. Now solemnize the secretive syllables, read to the congregation. For today and for tomorrow, this extremity, this contrivance of the spectre of the spheres, contriving balance to contrive a whole, this vital, never failing genius, fulfilling its meditations great and small. In this unhappy he meditates a whole, full of fortune and full of fate, as if he lived all lives, that he might know in all hard end, not hushful paradise, to haggling of wind and weather, by these lights like a blaze of summer straw in winter's nick.